All right, folks, welcome into Carps Corner. And man, the NFL coming at you thick and fast. You know, life coming at you thick and fast. Lots of deals being done. Got some NBA news, that I found interesting. Don't talk a ton of golf, but the LIV, the Saudi-backed golf league, a lot more traction than I think people thought. Aaron Rodgers talks about returning as a Packers. If there was anything else that was ever going to happen, in some big news with Deshaun Watson. So we're going to start off, Aaron Donald. Start off with the two Aarons, if you will. Start off with Aaron Donald. We'll throw this up right off Jump Street. The Rams, they've reworked Aaron Donald's contract, 3 remaining years, to give him a massive $40 million raise through 2024, making him the highest paid non-QB in NFL history. At 31 years old, he gets $95 million through 2024. So ask yourself the question, is Aaron Donald worth it? He's a really talented player. He's not a quarterback, not a wide receiver. But I would argue this about Aaron Donald, and the guy who I grew up idolizing. I got to remember a little bit of him when he was later kind of sliding out of his prime, teammate of my dad's. But I would say that Aaron Donald is fairly similar to Lawrence Taylor with how he can change the game. If you look at how Aaron Donald impacts a game and how you have to block him, the J.J. Watt was close to this in his prime, and I think that they were, fairly on par, but Aaron Donald has taken it to a whole new level with what he has been able to do. Dude trains relentlessly, but you have to double and triple team him. And even at that, in the biggest moments, he continues to go make plays. He's a guy you have to game plan around. And so through 2024, give him this massive raise. I don't think you'll see a severe decline in play. It may dip a little bit, but you're still talking about a guy who's going to be one of the best, if not the best, defensive player and one of the most impactful players on the field. Highest salary ever for a non-quarterback. I would say outside of the quarterback, this is a guy that can impact the game more than anyone else. Why? Because he lines up inside. He can line up outside. But if the quarterback's the most important position, the guys who impact that position the most are the next most important. And that's Aaron Donald on the defensive line with what he's able to provide. And he can do it in the run game and he can do it in the pass. He's not a one-dimensional player. Yeah, he might jump behind a gap sometimes. He might give up a long run. You have to kind of stay with him and keep working through him. And he might get out of position. But he does it because he's so athletic that more often than not, he can make the play still. The dude can do just about everything. And so the fact, he's getting the highest paid salary of any non-quarterback, it probably sounds about right. It sounds about right. And I don't know who else you would rather give that to. Yeah, wide receiver, but you can take wide receivers out of the game. You can double team them. Maybe a great one like Randy Moss. It's tough to do that with. Calvin Johnson, really hard. And so, yeah, I understand that. But you still have other mouths to feed, and you have to have a quarterback that can get him the ball. Aaron Donald can be productive regardless of how good guys are around him. Now, it helps to have other defensive linemen, so you can't literally triple team him every play. But there have been times where Aaron Donald is double teamed and triple teamed and still comes up and is able to make the big play. And so with Aaron Donald, you get it, you understand it. The Rams are trying to hold this thing together, keep this team together. You've got Matt Stafford. They signed Allen Robinson. They've got Cooper Kupp. They have dudes. You got Jalen Ramsey. They've got dudes out there. And they have the ability to continue to contend as long as they keep it together. Paying a lot of guys. And there may be a day where they're in cap purgatory, but that you would never want to be the guy. Go down as the GM, or Les Snead, GM, VP, as the guy who didn't pay Aaron Donald when he's still in his prime. And if he held out, wanted to be traded, whatever. You take care of your dudes. He's a leader. He sets the tone, and he's incredibly impressive out there. And he made big plays for you. Wise to give Aaron Donald that money. It's a lot, but I think he impacts the game in a way that few other defensive players do. Aaron Rodgers, going to this next Aaron, maybe the most important Aaron in the NFL. Asked if he was going to retire a Packer. His answer, definitely. And talked about the relationship that he has with the front office now, Brian Gutekunst, how good it is with the head coach, everybody else, everybody there. And so I think it's important news because as so often now, you watch Peyton Manning leave the Colts. You watch Tom Brady leave the Patriots. You watch these players who have spent a long time that are great and have had a lot of success ultimately leave their destination. Brett Favre leaving the Packers, but ultimately staying in one place and leaving that legacy. Very, very tough to do in this era of sports. And everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion, me included, that Aaron Rodgers was going to be leaving Green Bay. Well, as it turns out, he's going to be staying, and he ultimately wants to finish his career there. We'll see how good this team can ultimately be. Don't have Devontae Adams anymore. They're trying to draft. They've got a defense that's set up. We'll see if Aaron can enhance these receivers. We'll see what Sammy Watkins can do this year. But I think the fact that Aaron Rodgers came out, could he see himself retiring a Packer? Does he want to retire a Packer? Yeah, definitely. If you're a Packers fan, man, feels good. Should warm your soul right there, because I guarantee you this time last year, you were feeling the exact opposite of the way you feel when you heard that today. And I don't know. Watching Brett Favre play for the Jets, the Vikings, I know Tom's won a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl. They go other places. Watching Joe Montana play for the Chiefs. It's great. And it's a great story, especially when you can go win and have the kind of success. But there is something now in football and in sports where you get to watch somebody go in and out in the same uniform, and that type of loyalty, both by the player and by the club. To see that exist, well, it feels pretty darn good. Oh, goodness. Speaking of Peyton Manning, you got the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos were owned by the Bolin family for a long time. Denver Broncos are going to be sold to Rob Walton and his son Penner, the Penner Walton crew, for $4.65 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. And so we look at this, I remember talking to Jerry Jones, how he bought the Cowboys for $160, $180 million. Granted, that was all the way back in, late 80s. But you look at the inflation and appreciation of these NFL teams. The biggest sale of a NFL team prior was $2.3 billion. And that was the Carolina Panthers to Tepper. And that seemed like an astronomical amount. But there's a couple reasons why. Number one, the NFL's still a money train. And with the expansion of streaming and the fact that sports gambling is now going nationwide virtually, it's going to be occurring in a ton of states. Revenues are still going to climb. And you're making a lot of money. There's money in the future pipelines to be made. And really the reality is this. There are 31 franchises that are privately owned. They don't come up for sale that often. Unless family members bicker and don't like each other, unless there's solvency issues, generally these things are passed down in their legacy plays. But it's the ultimate club to be in. It's the most exclusive club to be in. They have to vote you in there. So Rob Walton, he's got a little ace in the hole. He's got a sibling, a relative that's married to Stan Kroenke, who ultimately owns the Rams. And so the NFL, they knew what they were getting into. Stan Kroenke's got a ton of cash. He's got deep pockets. So do the Waltons. And they're traditionalists. They're old school. There's talk about potentially Jeff Bezos buying, the Washington Commanders. I don't know if the NFL owners would approve him. Granted, he is the richest man in the world, and he would pour money into it, and he'd want it to be successful. But I don't know if he fits the profile that they're looking for. I don't know if he would fall in line. He might step outside the box too much. We talk about Jerry Jones, how he's aggressive and does this and that. You talk about Dan Snyder and all the stuff going on with him. NFL owners like other guys that are like them and guys that they can control a little bit. Paul Allen was super rich, But Paul Allen didn't get outside the box. He didn't want to be super visible. He wasn't going to be someone who was all out and crazy. And so as we see that 4.65 billion with a B, and here's the irony of this story that came out as well. John Elway, who's, been very influential with the Broncos, played there for a long time. I guess when he was retiring back in 98, Pat Bowlen owed him a bonus of like $21 million. He said he could convert that bonus into 10% of the club's ownership. Pat Bowlen probably thought, hey, maybe this will help save some cash, but it'll get John there. He loved John. There's an affinity for him. That's why they brought him in. But honestly, great goodwill in the community. It makes a lot of sense. And then you could buy another 10% for 17 million or 16. So like 37 million. He could have owned 20% of the Broncos, 20%, which today on this sale would have been almost $1 billion, over $900 million. So talk about short money, talk about long money, talk about players wanting to be entrepreneurs. And we've seen guys take equity stakes and work this better now than ever before. I guarantee you, John Elway's probably kicking himself a little bit looking at what this thing ultimately sold for. And he could have sold off 10% of it, got $450 million, kept probably 10% as a minority owner. And Walton, Penner, they probably wouldn't have a problem with that at all. He's a Broncos legend. He's working in the front office, like checking a ton of boxes. But I saw that and I was hearing about that today. I'm like, my goodness, that makes me almost nauseous to think about. The fact that when you pass up on a good deal, I look at some of the deals I've passed up in my life. Some lost money, some made a ton of money, deals I couldn't get into, deals I didn't know about. Man, it's a lot of cash, And the NFL was stable. Like it wasn't a loss. Bowlen even gave him an opportunity. He could have got out 5 years later for $5 million more than he bought it for. I mean, it's crazy town, but it's neither here nor there. But the NFL is the most powerful league in the United States, in North America, and it borders on the world. And so with that, it's a smooth transition into the LIV League 54, the Saudi Golf League. They just offered Phil Mickelson $200 million. He's going there. You're getting Dustin Johnson going over there for $125 million. These are salaries. That doesn't include winnings. It doesn't include endorsements. You're getting Ricky Fowler. Oh my goodness. Bryson DeChambeau's going. There's going to be a number of guys. There's some defectors now. And it's because they have so deep a pockets. They can afford to pay whatever. And so you look at the influence. Albert Breer pointed this out. Let's throw this tweet up. All of this is so interesting. He says, golfers taking money from the Saudis, NBA players getting rich in China, and the World Cup being held in Qatar. Qatar, they got tons of oil cash. They're bringing in slaves from South and Central Africa as the continent to help build the stadiums in the heat, in the desert. People are dying doing that. You have China in bed with the NBA. Like, you look at the forward influences, and make no mistake about it, there's a lot of Americans and American companies that are getting involved in, the EPL. The Blazers have been involved over there with Manchester United. Like, this has happened for a while. They're getting involved in golf, World Cup, NBA. It's curious to wonder if one day they'll ever try to penetrate the NFL. But with the influence they have in the Middle East, the Mideast, oil play, and the cash they have, especially as oil begins to rise, you begin to feel richer and richer and richer. When oil prices go up, your bank account, if you're a Middle Eastern sheikh and you've got tons of oil reserves, it's just going through the roof. But they were able to pull all these guys over. They've been investing in a lot of different things. If you're the PGA, you have to be concerned. It has to be DEFCON 4. The only good news for the PGA, and let's face it, like Phil's on, the back five of his career. He's 50. He needed the cash to pay off gambling debts, but he's a big name and people tune in to watch him. I do. Is the fact that Tiger Woods, they offered him reportedly close to $1 billion. He turned them down. And I think for Tiger, who already is worth $1 billion, well, another billion's nice, but it's not going to dramatically change his life. It's a legacy play. He might want to try to go get that 16th major, be able to see if he can hawk that down. But just being in contention, the fact that Jack turned down to have Greg Norman's job, like I think Tiger, the legacy to him was more important. But a lot of these younger guys, they don't care. It's all about the cash. And Dustin Johnson getting $125 million, that's life-changing money. Who knows what Ricky Fowler's getting? Those guys going over Bryson DeChambeau. They can still play the majors. They can still do this. But the influence of foreign money now coming into American sports, wild. Something that I didn't think that I'd ever really see like this. All right, now to some big news in Cleveland. I'll throw this up here. Deshaun Watson. New report found Browns QB Deshaun Watson booked sessions with at least 66 different women for massage therapy in a span of 17 months. So I saw that at first. I'm like, all right, 66 massages, 17 months. Roughly breaks out to, around one a week. Then I'm like, wait a second. That's different massage therapists. That's different women. Not just a massage a week. That's a different woman every week or a week and a half. That's a lot. Like I said, my time in Dallas, I had 2 massage therapists. I had one guy that worked on me in Columbus all the time, one lady in Detroit, and a guy in New England. Like this behavior, like I was on the belief that he's fighting these. I thought there wouldn't be enough evidence. He might be able to win even in civil court. And because of that, the NFL might be forced to give him no suspension or a very mild one. But after seeing this come out, the 23rd and 24th lawsuit and the things that they're alleging, and I don't want to get into some of the graphic nature of this stuff. I mean, he might be missing this whole year. And we'll throw this up. Gil Brandt on the Pat McAfee show, friend of the program here. Pat, a great dude on there with my guy AJ Hawk, but he threw out with new information almost every day. I have a hard time seeing Deshaun Watson getting on the field this year. And coach, that's a little bit of check the scores. That's read the tea leaves. Gil Brandt's pretty tied in now, or Andrew Brandt rather, pretty tied in. He understands a lot about the league. And when that's coming out, like he's not just saying that off the cuff. That's just not wild speculation. He's hearing that from people, other coaches, GMs, front office individuals, people inside the league office. They're waiting to rule. But there is a mountain of negative PR. And this is the one thing that could not happen for Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns. It's the same thing that's happening in Washington. It's the constant drip of information. Here's this. Criminal lawsuits done. Now we're getting the civils. Now there's this information. Now some of the deposition information is coming out. Now there's a 23rd lawsuit. Now there's a 24th lawsuit. Holy smokes, let's read what's in these. And so it's a never-ending story. And that's why I've been able to talk about it so much, because there's just constantly new information. We live in a 24-hour news cycle. If you would have settled all of these, put them to bed, and then moved on, like it would have made a big difference. But this ongoing legal trial, the fact that there's depositions, there's all this different stuff. There was cases in multiple counties. Like there's just so much information here that it made it easy to talk about. And so the Browns, like they need to be preparing to play a season without Deshaun Watson. I thought it'd be maybe 4 to 6. 8 would be extreme. But I think as you look at this, he might get 10 or 12. At that point, like, is he come out? And that's assuming that they don't have to re-adjudicate this in case more information comes out, even after they rule at some point, which is probably going to be in July. The Browns need to know, because they've got to prepare for the season. You want to make sure that what your quarterback situation is going to be, good, bad, or indifferent, but you got to know. And they're in a bad spot right now. They knew about the 22, and there was rumors within his contract, like they accepted and understood the risk of the 22, but that was based upon they were telling him everything. But there may be out clauses in language if there's more. Now there's 23rd lawsuit. Now there's a 24th. But what are they supposed to do? You gave up so much draft compensation for him. You're hamstrung. Even if you can get out of that contract, Where are you going to go find another quarterback? You have a team that's ready to win now. And so you're probably just going to have to take your medicine, let him sit for however long he's going to sit, and then hope that when he gets back, he's good and can still contribute and play after sitting out maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years without playing football. And so the commissioner's exempt list was brought up. And the league, they've talked about it. The commissioner's exempt list, they said, was for criminal investigations, not civil. So this is civil. So they're not going to be giving them the out on this. They're going to be giving Cleveland Browns, letting them off the hook. So the commissioner's exempt list isn't happening. In reality, you might as well just take his suspension, eat it, and then try to get back on the field. The commissioner's exempt list, forget about that. Just say, render your verdict. Let's go. If it's a whole year, it's a whole year at this point, which it looks like it might be trending that way. And I was of the belief it would be on the lighter side with him fighting these, thinking that he had a chance to win in court. Now with all this information, the court of public opinion, whoa, it is tidal waved the other way. And I'm not going to be some Yahoo up here who's, he should never play football again. They're criminally, I understand it's a very high bar of proof. If a team wants to sign them and they want to deal with everything that comes with it, that's their prerogative. They can do that. I'm not going to ever besmirch anyone and tell them that they can't work. I don't know what happened. There's a mountain of evidence, or of allegations rather, against him. There's a lot of testimony against him. If the Cleveland Browns want to deal with it, then you know what? They're dealing with it all right now, and they're taking it right in the beak because there's a lot right there to deal with. I want to finish on this positive note. Jayson Tatum, Boston Celtics star, great college player. Watched him grow and develop. And you see him have his son around with him all the time. Deuce, come bring him out there with him, and it's great. And I'll throw this up here on the screen. Said, if I'm a role model for young fathers around the world, that's great. I think we need more role models like that, just to have more male fathers be present. Folks, this is a big problem in our society. I got 4 kids. I was one of 4. My dad was one of 5. My mom's one of 7. And especially for young men, but for young women as well, to have a male father in their life to be present, and for Jayson Tatum to own that responsibility, to understand that you are crafting the future for your child. The understanding of, how to be a good husband, what type of good husband they should marry, the behavior to model, the ability to lead, the ability to have expectations for your children, and for your children to feel those expectations and to understand you're going to fail, and to help pick them up, but also expect them to succeed and to strive and to be there for them, to read them books, to rebound for them, to throw catch, practice flashcards, answer questions, and to just be present in their life. It's just something that my generation and below me hasn't done a great job with. I take my job as a father as the most serious job that I can possibly have, because long after I've left this earth, that job will still be felt. The results of that will still have an impact. And Jayson Tatum, I respect him for being on the platform that he is, being a young man who could abdicate his responsibility as a father. Steph Curry does this a little bit too. He's out there and he brings his daughter around. It's all good. Brings his kids around. I get it. I love it. But for guys like that to take ownership of being a dad and how important that is, the impact you can have on your children, children's friends, and just modeling the behavior to show your son how he should act, to demonstrate to your daughter the way a man should treat a woman, and being that positive role model and being present. I give Jayson Tatum a lot of props. I liked him before, but I really like him now, because that to me is setting an example. It's being socially responsible. It's doing the things you need to do when you're in a position of influence. So thank you, Jayson Tatum. that ends this edition of Carps Corner. Thank you for tuning in. Keep shooting your questions, anything you want to hear about, stuff that I can answer. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing with your friends. It's been real fun going on this journey with you. There's so many things going on in the world. Just when you think it's going to be dry, June and July are supposed to be dry sports months, and they have been great. So continue. Anything you want to know about, I will continue to help you with and give you whatever little knowledge that I have to share. So thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.